Hey, it's Benji Cole, son of Al Cole from CBS Radio and host of People of Distinction, the talk that gives an in-depth view of some of the most dynamic, intelligent, and successful people on the planet. Run to our website, peopleofdistinction.org for more info, or you can always email me directly at benji@alcoleenterprises.com. And on the line with us today, we have Terol McCullar. And we're going to be discussing his amazing book, SICQ. Now, it's available for purchase through Amazon, BarnesandNoble.com, directly through the publishing company, AuthorReputationPress.com. But people, listen, if you want to gather everything that T-Mac has in store, well, do yourself a favor and head directly to his personal site. And that's tmacent.net. TMACENT.net. There you'll find more information on T-Mac himself, more information on this fantastic narrative, as well as the other books that he's written, and also be able to find hyperlinks set up to take you to the purchasing pages. So one more time, that's tmacent.net. And if you haven't figured it out already, T-Mac was brought to our network, People of Distinction, today by that same publishing company, Author Reputation Press. And people, listen, if you or anyone you know have a book that they'd like moved, I'm telling you, give yourself the best gift you could possibly give, okay? Contact ARP, have their wonderful team move it for you. They're one of the best in the business to do it, and they specialize in taking your literary creation to the next level. And once more, you can find out more information on them through authorreputationpress.com. And listen, it is an absolute pleasure to have T-Mac here on the line. So without further ado, as I said to you before, sit back, strap in, and get ready for a wonderful ride. T-Mac, first and foremost, man, welcome to People of Distinction, and thank you very much for being a guest. How you doing today?
Well, thank you, Benji. I'm doing great. Thanks for giving the opportunity to present my writings to your listeners.
Yeah, of course.
I appreciate your input. It was really good.
Thank you very much, man. I appreciate it. And what I'll say to that, T-Mac, is you started it, okay? You had to lay the foundation down for me to be able to offer that introduction. So thank you again for all that you've done. Hopefully the journey continues after that, and we'll touch up on what's upcoming later on. But T-Mac, I know we have a lot of information to cover, not only with this fantastic book, with other ones that you've written as well. But before we go into your writings, I want to learn a little bit more about your background, please. So let's start there. Tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Okay. I was born in Oklahoma, and my family moved to the San Francisco Bay Area on the San Pablo Richmond Bay Area side in California. That was about 1952. I grew up in the best of times, though, in the 1960s. I graduated from Richmond Union High School in 1965. I worked almost every kind of a job, but I finally settled in and started working for the California Department of Corrections. I survived there for 26 years. I ended up as a sergeant instructor. Now, that experience gave rise to my two other published nonfiction books about corrections, Hoggs, Hoggs, and Hoggs II. I'm also a singer-songwriter, and I currently live in Placerville in the California Foothills.
There you have it. Listen, man, an artist through and through. We love it. You know, before we go any further, T-Mac, I do want to take a moment and, listen, commend you on your work in not only the correctional facility, but, also in law enforcement at large, right? I mean, you're involved in that particular umbrella and the things that it falls under. And I feel like a lot of times, listen, we have society at large, when I say we, right, a generalized we. I think we have a very limited perspective when it comes to, again, correctional officers and people all around and under that law enforcement umbrella. And I think a lot of times it gets taken for granted the sacrifices that you and your law enforcement brothers and sisters have to entail and go through, right? So I want to take a second to really commend you on your work and thank you for everything that you've done, because I'm sure it wasn't easy. And of course, that goes into Hoggs and Hoggs II. The anchor for today is all about your fictional narrative, SICQ. T-Mac, without further ado, man, tell us a little bit more about it.
actually, the novel SICQ, I thought about writing it about 1978. It's been a while. I was lying in bed one night trying to imagine what humanity's reaction would be if there were actual contact with the divine or alien entity. I scribbled out a few pages over a few months, and eventually I transferred my idea to a manual typewriter. But life got in the way, and I shelved SICQ for about 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
And when computers evolved, I transferred my pages to a digital format. Over time, I actually scanned through my writings and polished up some of the chapters. But actually, it wasn't until 2021 when the COVID alienation that we're in offered me time to continue writing. But I actually didn't continue with SICQ at the time. Instead, I wrote my first published book, Hoggs Prison Journals. While I was in a publishing process for Hoggs, I dusted off SICQ and I finished writing that. And then I wrote a follow-up book to Hoggs. So I have 3 published books in the last year. I'm currently working on a sequel to SICQ entitled SOS.
There you have it. Listen, T-Mac, a lot to uncover there, man. The next thing I want to go into is inspiration for a second, okay? Now, as you've mentioned, as I've mentioned, your background, predominantly career-wise, was in the correctional facility, right? And, of course, we see Journals and Hoggs II. That has a lot to do with that background. But when it comes to creative writing, as you mentioned, this was something that dates back, I believe you said, in the 70s sometime. So this by no means was a new thing for you. But I want to talk about inspiration for a second, and where does that love for creative writing come from?
Well, I'm not sure exactly where it started, but I did read a lot of different science fiction books and political books when I was younger. Mm-hmm. But my writing, metaphorically, you might say, is an idea like a stream of water. I drop a few leaves which are characters in and follow their journey, and some interact and then separate and possibly meet again somewhere else downstream. Then I add other leaves, which are characters, and connect them with previous chapters. And then rocks and boulders in the stream help decide where the story or characters might go next. I'm not sure that's how other writers and authors write, but I don't know the other way. But I do extensive research on all of my books to find actual sources and places to include. For example, Hat Creek is a SETI complex, which is Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence in Northern California. And biosafety labs in Cheyenne Mountain in Colorado mentioned in my book. They also exist. And of course, correctional places do exist too.
Mm-hmm. Listen, T-Mac, with that wonderful imagery that you put out for us, I mean, listen, you are a writer, bro. I'm telling you, man, that was a wonderful analogy that you put together in terms of the stream and how characters meet and intertwine. That was beautiful imagery. I think poetry might be in your future as well, because that was fantastic. I love it. I'm here for it. People, again, we're here on the line with Terol McCullar. We're discussing his fantastic book, SICQ, available for purchase through Amazon, Barnes & Noble, but directly through his personal site, tmacent.net. T-Mac, next question that I'd love to get into, man, and really a curiosity for myself with this next one. What would you say was a highlight for you in writing the book? Or if not a highlight, something that surprised you, man, that you weren't expecting before you began?
Well, actually, the writing, everything sort of has takes its own direction sometimes. I have an idea, and then each chapter develops its own way, and then I get to a point where am I going to go next? But I guess it's just a creative thing that I have on that process there.
Mm-hmm.
SICQ actually set itself is set in a not-so-distant, it's a non-dystopian future. There's no evil shadow of doom cast in this novel. And since it is actually a work of fiction, as it has alien contact, it is yet a philosophical adventure into the challenges and changes in humanity affected by actual contact with a possible alien intelligence. there's a large number of likable characters, and there's a fair amount of suspense throughout the book. So I think the surprise would be more or less toward the end and as it developed on its own.
Absolutely.
The initial backdrop of this is a political divide between President Ren Lang and Vice President Natas. And there's several major characters woven into the emerging biological, astrophysical, and military circumstances. There's a lot of characters in this book. Multifaceted scientist Sal Estian. His crew are searching for possible alien contamination from a wave of particles sent as a diffusion by the aliens sent about 6 months earlier. Got other scientists named Dr. Gemo. He's an enigmatic, world-renowned scientist, but he's gone missing for a second time in his life. We have a Commander Jim Yost. He's an encounter with an alien hologram during a spacewalk. Of course, there's always these things where you mentioned before about how you would look at an alien contact on your own personal beliefs. In order to validate those existences, there's a lot of SETI sites in my book that are used around the globe to verify the content of the signals. There's quite a few different, like I said, the characters all over this place. Hat Creek SETI astrophysicist Dominique Sol and Amir Haddad. They're reluctantly thrust into the center of world notoriety about the alien contact. The cornerstone of the novel actually is based on a seemingly benign conversation between Dominic Sol and an alien named Adam. And now that occurs in an implausible real-time audio conversation sent from an exoplanet in Alpha Centauri A system 4.3 light years away. And the scientific community is challenged by the use of alien quantum mechanics acceleration to describe time as a wave in order to communicate in real time. The concerns about alien contact are all over the place, and people want to stop the alien encroachment on Earth. So there's that aspect also.
People, I'm telling you, he used the word multifaceted, and I think that is the perfect description. Because listen, my job here as the interviewer in a short period of time is to really package this nice and neat, but with a book with so much layers, with so many things that it offers. Listen, that's very difficult to do, but labeling it multifaceted is a wonderful description because there's so much more under the surface. Listen, on the top layer, it's an alien sci-fi novel. Underneath it, though, with each one of these individual characters that have been described, listen, there's a journey that each one of them are going to take, and you have to head on over to Amazon, Barnes & Noble, tmacent.net. You got to purchase the book. That's the only way to get involved in all of it. I absolutely love it. T-Mac, I've held off long enough, man, and I got to go into this next question because I've been so curious about this. There's something about your title, SICQ, that is just, listen, from an author's perspective, I think you hit it on the head, right? Because when you create the title of your book, that's what the readers are first going to see, right? They're sifting through a bunch of titles and then boom, they come across yours and they're stopped in their tracks. So you hit it on the head. It was very successful. Now, my curiosity is getting the best of me, man. I want to go into a brief description of it. And of course, without giving too much away, because people, you got to purchase the book to gather all of the information. But when it comes to your title, T-Mac, why did you choose that title to be the representation for your book, and what is the connection that it has to the narrative?
Well, if you read the book and get down toward the end, you'll see what the reason for the SICQ is. But suffice to say, the philosophical aspect of this and looking at how you would deal with alien presence or the knowledge of aliens in the universe on a personal level is a major thing that I look for in the way I put this book together. That was why I wrote it. Now, I can't really give the title SICQ as what it actually means, but it has to do with philosophical aspect of how you would deal for things and how time relates to how you feel about life and how life comes at you quickly.
Mm-hmm. There you have it. Listen, look, guys, I got my hand stuck in the cookie jar, okay? I wanted to take it, and he's just not giving it to us, all right? And I love it because, again, you got to head on over and pick up your copies of it to learn about it. I'm so enthralled. I'm so engaged with everything that he has going on. I know you all are, too. Last couple of questions here for you, T-Mac. What would you say, or who would you say, rather, is your intended audience with this book? And as difficult as it may be, if there is a message that you're wanting your listening audience, or our listening audience, rather, and your readers to take from it, what would that be?
If anybody's ever thought about what your reaction would be if there's actual proof of an intelligent life in the universe, is whom would want to read this book. Would we accept the aliens? Would we deny it or bury our collective heads in the sand, at least until the aliens did arrive in physical form? You know, those are the people who would be interested in understanding how their reaction would be and how other people's reaction would be.
Mm-hmm. We know about this fantastic narrative. We know about your past, T-Mac. I'm focusing now on the future, man. Please tell me there's another one on the horizon. I believe you mentioned that there was a sequel coming up. And again, without giving too much away, tell us about what's on the horizon, please.
Well, the sequel to SICQ is SOS. And that actually is the same thing as and a distress signal. But SOS is the sequel title. And it is what I'm, currently working on. My other two books are Hoggs, Prison Journals, and Hoggs II. And any future sequels I have, these are creative nonfictions, and they're real stories of non-sequential incidents about staff and inmates in the California Department of Corrections. Now, I in these writings, I go into detail, about how the character does things and what they're actually doing, so you can actually visualize it. The daily activities of an officer can be mundane, but spontaneous yard incidents, building riots, staff assaults, and escape attempts, all those things happen daily throughout the department. And I include a lot of the stories about inmate encounters, but also about illegal acts by staff, and document a few of the policy missteps by the department. The characters are real, and the names have been changed in some cases, but not always. Mm-hmm. The Hoggs won't disappoint those who are curious about what goes on in prison. Each chapter is a different character, usually, and always a different institution. I have a huge following of readers and corrections that can attest to the incidents in Hoggs. Of course, I'd like to see both of these as a screenplay. Hoggs itself could be a sequel with unending streaming stories to enlighten the viewer about what actually happens in the correctional environment. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, sure, I'd like to hit these as a movie or a weekly series.
Yeah. There is so much to be gained here. SICQ is the anchor, right? That's the fictional narrative that we discussed. But listen, hey, let's say fiction is not your thing and you want to get down to the brass tacks. You want to learn about something that truly has happened. As he said, certain names have been changed, but not all. Check out Hoggs, Prison Journals, and Hoggs II. And make sure you check back in frequently to get the sequel to SICQ, SOS, the moment it becomes available. I'm going to say it for you once more. I know I don't have to, but let's re-impress it once again. We're here on the line with Terol McCullar. We finished discussing his amazing book, SICQ. Remember, head on over to Amazon, Barnes & Noble, the publishing company, authorreputationpress.com. But more importantly, head on over to his personal site, tmacent.net, to gather everything that he has in store. It truly is the gift that keeps on giving. and there's something there for everyone. So head on over there, pick up your copies today, and you can, of course, thank me later. T-Mac, this has been an absolute pleasure. Man, such an honor. Thank you once again for being a guest on People of Distinction.
Thank you very much, Benji.